Okay, well, it's 2:03. I think we should get started. Hi again. Welcome to today's discussion around empathetic AI for underrepresented students. Again, I'm Kirk Daulerio, co-founder of AdmitHub, and I'll be serving as facilitator for today's discussion. Joining me today are my esteemed colleagues, Rahje Branch, who's manager of student and family engagement at Common App. From College Advising Corps, we have Greg Nicholson, Chief Program Officer, also Toby Kinsel, Director of National Projects. And from AdmitHub, we have Ann Law, Associate Director of Impact Initiatives. I wanted to pass the mic quickly to the panel for some brief introductions. Now, in an effort to make this webinar more joyful, I've already talked about your roles and your affiliations. So how about your hometown and a fun fact about you? Before I put the panel on the spot, I can start. I am from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My fun fact is I enjoy winter camping. Now, I will pass it to Rahje.
Kirk, I wasn't expecting that at all.
That's why I didn't prep you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rahje again. I'm from the Reach Higher at Common App team. Originally, I am from Los Angeles, the beautiful city of Los Angeles, South Central to be specific. And a fun fact. Well, I guess a fun fact, I was Reach Higher's first intern. So my whole introduction into like college access started as a college student myself with Reach Higher. So it comes full circle.
Amazing. Very cool. Greg, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Greg Nicholson. I was born in Ohio and moved around quite a lot. So right now I'm based in Claremont, California, outside of beautiful Los Angeles. Fun fact for me is, I guess, to deal with this current working at home situation in California, we built an office out of giant Legos in my house. So
Wow.
We're looking forward to turning that into a fort later.
Very cool. Ann, you're next on my view screen here.
Perfect. So I'm Ann. I'm from AdmitHub. I work with Kirk, and at this point, I should know that he would throw a curveball like a fun fact into a webinar, but I was caught off guard. I'm originally from Boston, which is where AdmitHub is headquartered. Fun fact about me, if I didn't love people and students so much, I think I might have pursued a career as a marine biologist.
Awesome. And Toby, to round it out. And Toby's muted. I can take a guess at her hometown and fun fact.
There we go. Okay. I'm unmuted now. Good afternoon, everyone. I would have liked to heard your guess, Kirk.
I'm going to say Kansas City.
That's pretty close. I'm from Illinois originally, so Midwest. Good guess. I'm actually from a small town called Minear. It's a town of 1,300 people, so I grew up very much in a rural environment. I've been with College Advising Corps for a year, and a fun fact about me is that before COVID-19, I was a ballroom dancer. Now I just ballroom dance virtually.
I did not know that. That's so fun.
You must have a lot of space in your home to
Not
dance.
so much. I just move furniture around.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for bringing the joy today in the webinar. And just a quick note on Q&A. We'll leave time for discussion and questions at the end, but you also may ask questions at any time during the presentation. Feel free to post a question in the chat section, again, either to panelists only or to all panelists and attendees, or you may use the Q&A feature. We'll leave time at the end for questions, but right now we're going to take a quick look at the agenda. And we're going to start off, once the agenda gets clicked. In a second, technology, Zoom. We're loving the Zoom. I can tell, oh, there's the agenda. So we're going to start off with some introductions to Common App, College Advising Corps, and AdmitHub. Then we'll discuss the origin story of this collaboration and the imperative for increased student support this summer, especially amongst underrepresented student populations. We'll cover how artificial intelligence and automated text messaging at scale was utilized to meet this pressing need. Then we'll go into detail about our collaborative engagement with students and how we balance various methods of intervention, including nudging and interactive surveys. Next, we'll share data and insights from the initiative after text messaging with over 173,000 students over the past 4 months. This will include top trending topics that students are asking, how students were linked to resources and further advising, and also a preview of what's in store for the future. And finally, we'll leave time for your questions. As I mentioned before, feel free to ask questions at any time during the presentation. We'll hope to get to as many as we can, time permitting. But without further ado, we'll get started, and I will pass the mic back to Rahje.
Okay, so hey everyone, once again, I'm from the Reach Higher at Common App team. For those of you who are familiar with Reach Higher, it was actually started a while back by First Lady Michelle Obama, who was a first-generation college student herself. And so fast forward to 2019, we were acquired by Common App to fully build out the access and equity team. Strong mission of Common App is access and equity and integrity in the college application process. And so if you used Common App yourself to apply to college, you might be familiar with it. I used Common App to apply to college, and I think what we've seen in the past few years is Common App expanding and growing and moving past a tool for students to apply to college and now supporting students through that process fully and helping them matriculate through college as well, as we'll see with this particular project. Super excited to be here. There's some stats on this slide that just show the magnitude and the number of students we serve. So starting off, we'll have about 2.1 million, students who open an application with Common App. And of those 2.1 million, about 1 million end up submitting. Just for clarity, juniors and seniors can open up an application. So that's why the numbers might look a little different. And we've grown starting from, a smaller number of member colleges to now 900 member colleges. It's huge. So we're able to serve a lot of folks from around the country and around the world. So I'm definitely excited to be a part of this organization. It's definitely mission driven. And so, Kirk, do you want me to talk about sort of how we started, or should I pass things on to Greg to talk a little bit about College Advising Corps? Because I'm happy to talk about.
If you want to say a few words, that'd be great before passing
just
to Greg.
A few words on how we started. So actually, I'm about to celebrate my 1-year anniversary at Common App, and I was brought in to sort of oversee our Up Next texting initiative. And so that initiative is a little bit different than the one that we use now with AdmitHub. But with that particular initiative, we have students texting other students as they apply to college and work through their first year. And so I was doing that work, loved doing it. And then what happened? COVID-19, right, in March. And so shortly after COVID-19 sort of disrupted all of our lives, our CEO, Jenny, said, we got to support more students, right? Like, how else can we do that? And so we already had a partnership with College Advising Corps, who was servicing those students from our previous texting initiative. We have friends at AdmitHub who are working with us with some future projects. And so they were all able to come together, put their brains together to really support these 173,000 students. And so I'm going to turn things over to Greg to talk a little bit more about College Advising Corps and maybe expand a little bit more on what that partnership has looked like.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rahje. So again, I'm Greg Nicholson. I'm the Chief Program Officer from College Advising Corps. We are a national nonprofit. Our mission is to increase the number of low-income, first-generation college-going, underrepresented minority high school students who enter and complete post-secondary education. So we do that by providing near-peer advising to support the students in high schools across the country, and in partnership with universities. We partner with 30 universities across the country who implement our program. And in 2019-20, as you see here, we had 829 near-peer advisors who started last academic year serving in 782 schools. Of course, fast forward to March, and we had 829 near-peer advisors who became virtual advising supports to the students that they serve. And as Rahje alluded to, at that time we were looking to both continue to serve the students that we were already serving when we were in high schools, but also use the opportunity to reach out to other students across the country who had suddenly lost access to the college counselors and counseling staff at their high schools when their high schools had to close down. And so we had already been working with Common App on the UpNext partnership, and we're just thrilled at the opportunity to be able to reach more students across the country, which we wouldn't have been able to do without the addition of the AdmitHub chatbot to the process. And so that's what we're here to talk about, how the AdmitHub chatbot let us scale up and reach so many more students through the partnership with Common App and providing advisors to back up the chatbot when it had questions that needed to be handled by humans. So with that, I'll pass it back to whoever's next. I think it's Anne.
Yes. Hi, everybody. So again, my name is Anne, and I work on research and impact here at AdmitHub. So just stepping back for a moment for those who might not be as familiar, AdmitHub is an education technology company, and we build artificially intelligent chatbots that are designed to support students. So currently we're working with over 120 partners all across the country, including universities and nonprofits like our friends here at the Common App and College Advising Corps, and we're engaging over 2 million students. In my role and how I support this project, I'm utilizing research to think both about what to say to students as well as how to say it through our platform, all in the service of making sure that we're driving student outcomes and achieving that student impact. We all care really deeply about student impact, and particularly for AdmitHub, since our earliest days, we've rigorously examined the effects of our chatbots through randomized control trials and other research studies. And you'll notice here, just reference our very first RCT done in partnership with Georgia State University, where we were able to help the institution using an AdmitHub chatbot to reduce summer melt by 22%. So that's just a little bit of background. Next slide, please. Perfect. So in the context of this particular partnership, what AdmitHub is kind of bringing to the table here is, that experience that we're building on with all of our research studies, as well as the technology platform that enables us to scale and, marry all of our efforts between the Common App and the College Advising Corps to reach students. I'm sure folks on this webinar know that the student journey to successfully matriculating in college is incredibly complex. There are so many different opportunities and points in the journey where students might, fall off the path. We know that this is especially challenging for first-gen low-income college applicants. In other studies that have been done on this phenomenon called summer melts, up to 40% of students, that's what some of the estimates on the higher end say, up to 40% of students who apply and are admitted and otherwise are good to go to college fail to kind of show up and matriculate successfully. And that's in a normal year. And I know Rahje and Greg have alluded to this, but COVID definitely throws a wrench in everybody's plans. And we know that with the COVID crisis, this vulnerable student population is even more vulnerable. And we run the risk this year of having students who are disproportionately harmed when it comes to successfully enrolling in college because they no longer have access, the same level of access to advisors and guidance counselors and folks that they might have in schools, for example. So You know, we all moved, the Common App College Advising Corps at AdmitHub, we moved with a lot of urgency to see if we could develop a response together. And with the unique scale that all of our different organizations are bringing to the table, Common App with the reach to students and College Advising Corps with your network of, you know, near peer advisors, we were able to come up with a solution to help more students than ever before this summer when we know that students really need that help. And in terms of specifics for this program, what we're doing is really incorporating the artificial intelligence technology with expert counseling to engage the 173,000 students that we are talking to this summer. We're using the power of behavioral nudges. You can see an example of that on the left-hand side, along with interactive surveys, all delivered via text, because we know that that's a medium that students are really responsive to. It's really easy for students to engage with that. And we're in a position really to motivate students to take action. So closing out their senior year of high school, making sure that they're taking care of those key enrollment tasks. And at the same time, just knowing that this is a completely unprecedented time, we also have the ability to derive insights and survey and ask students, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on with you? And we're able to really listen to what their concerns are. And of course, there's the powerful human element that the College Advising Corps is kind of bringing to these interactions as well. And I'll hand it to Greg to tell you a little bit more about that.
Great, thank you, Anne. So while the chatbot, who's called Ollie, by the way, can handle a huge portion of the student conversation automatically, there are, of course, questions that the chatbot can't always answer. And so that's where the CAC advisors come in. They answer the questions that the chatbot cannot by taking over the conversation. And there are a number of ways that students can access that human advisor. And oftentimes, Ollie will suggest that connection and ask if, as you see here, the student would like to engage with an advisor. And then the advisor can reply via text, or they can work to set up a time to connect by phone or video to follow up. And so on the next slide, we'll pass it back to Rahje to talk a little bit about the outcomes that we've seen since we started this in April.
Yeah, so these numbers that you see here are absolutely incredible. And I don't just say that because I'm a part of this project, but I say that really in comparison to some of our other projects and what we've seen when it comes to student engagement. We initially started texting a little over 173,000 students. Who these students are, I think, is important to talk about. And I don't know if we didn't really fully address that, but the majority of these students hit either two parameters. So they were first generation or considered low income students. And that just means that they qualified for the fee waiver at Common App. So they met that benchmark for Common App's fee waiver. Some of those students had submitted at least one application, but some of those students hadn't, which by April, when we launched this project, for them to not have submitted an application was a strong indication that they might have been in a little bit of trouble when it came to maybe applying and going to college. And so of those 173,000, we had an engagement rate of over 50%, 62.7%. As of a couple weeks ago, which is amazing. And I think Anne and Kirk might speak a little bit more to like what it means to in other, AdmitHub initiatives. They'll even tell you this is a pretty impressive number. We've sent 16 million messages to students. So from everything ranging from FAFSA and verification to really doing temperature checks to see how students are handling this stressful time. To applying, making sure they submit those applications to enrollment. And we'll continue to text these same students. We've received about 730,000. I looked this morning and that number has increased a little bit. And so I'm excited to say that too. Like our numbers are still going up and this is a strong indicator of success for us. And I think because these numbers are so high, that even led us to say, you know what, let's keep texting these students throughout their first semester of college, or what would be their first semester of college. There was a question in there that I wanted to address really quickly about Common App's member institutions. And the question was, how many of our colleges are community colleges. And at this time, none of our member institutions are community colleges, but we are exploring ways to make community colleges a part of the Common App process. As we all know, the community college process is a little bit different in terms of enrollment, in terms of acceptance, even for the cost. And so, you know, we just have to explore that more when considering making that a part. But I will say that at Common App and at, you know, at Reach Higher, we are definitely committed to helping students achieve their college dreams. And we know that for a lot of students, that does start with community college. Whether they end up transferring or not, some students just decide that they want to stay at the community college level, which is okay too. And we encourage all of that because we know that community colleges are turning out huge rates for graduation rates for our students. And are definitely preparing them for the workforce. So while we don't have members just yet from community colleges, we are still strong proponents of the community college system. And some of our students from that 173,000, we know won't end up going to our member institutions, but will in fact go to community colleges. I'll turn it back over to Anne.
Great. So just to, you know, dig a little bit deeper in terms of the content and the messages that we were sending out to students. So as Rahje mentioned, we've been engaging with these students since April, sending roughly 3 messages 3 times a week. And there are a couple of different elements when it comes to, you know, what we send to students. So certainly really important reminders for key tasks and tips for kind of taking the next step, whether that's, you know, submitting a transcript and kind of closing out that application process. Or, you know, paying the bill. We're also sending, just given where the world is, lots of supportive content. So asking students kind of where they are, both of the process, but also how they're feeling about all of it. And the last piece, which very directly ties to the work that Greg and his team are doing, is really making connections for further support offline. We know that the bot isn't going to be able to kind of answer every question or provide the kind of attention that some students might need. So really proactively providing opportunities for students to connect with counselors. That might be in the form of a webinar or virtual office hours. And also showing an example in a little bit of another campaign that we did just to facilitate that connection a little bit more. And the content of our messages really is aligned to where students are in their application and enrollment process. So obviously when we first started in April, a lot of that was really about helping students to weigh their options. They were just starting to hear from schools with their offers and helping them kind of interpret their financial aid letters. And so that was the type of messaging that we sent to them. And now as we're heading into the start of the fall semester, students are in a very different place. And so we're making sure that they've done everything that they need to do to make sure that they are registered, they've paid their bills, kind of taking care of all of these tasks. And to make this a little bit more concrete, I'd love to show you a couple of different examples just to give you a sense of the range of different types of campaigns that we've sent out. So in this first one is a pretty recent example where we were touching on bill payments. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see just a little snapshot of what the campaign looks like in the AdmitHub platform. And on the right side, we have a couple of insights that we've derived from this particular campaign. So in this example, we really wanted to check in with students about the task of paying their bill. We know that that's a step that can often trip students up where they're not aware of what it takes to go ahead and take care of their bill. Also probably unaware of some of the consequences, like not being able to register for their classes. And so we decided to structure this in the format of a survey so that we could provide, you know, slightly different responses. It's almost like a choose your own adventure for students, depending on what they were reporting to us about whether or not they'd handled their bill. So in doing that, a couple of interesting discoveries emerged. So one, we've realized that many students just a few weeks out from the start of classes still have not paid their bill. We are not happy about this number for sure. And when we probed around why that might be, we wanted to get a sense of kind of what's stopping you from paying your bill. There could be any number of reasons. It might be that their plans have changed. It might be that they, you know, don't necessarily have the funds right now. And when we probed about why students have not paid their bill, the data suggests that many of them are really caught at that first step of even locating their bill and reviewing it. So what's not captured here, what you don't see on the screen, is the kind of differentiated support that we're then able to provide to those students. And so For the students who already said, yes, I've paid my bill, they kind of got a virtual high five from the bot, a nice pat on the back, nice work, you've got this. And then for students who said that they haven't paid their bill yet, they were directed to some instructions on, hey, you should check your school email to make sure that you haven't missed any important emails about your bill. You should check your student portal. There's probably a section there where you can log in and take a look at that. And then for students who reported, hey, I'm having some financial difficulties, I think it's really just encouraging them to, start to connect to those resources on campus. So work with your financial aid office, work with the billing office to see if you can figure out a solution like a payment plan. And so in addition to both kind of asking students where they are with this process, we're also able to provide them with really supportive content just to help them to navigate all of the different resources at their disposal. So that's the first example. In this next one, we sent this also pretty recently. We wanted to check in with students about what their experience in the fall will be like given COVID. So here we asked students, how will your classes be delivered? Will it be in person? Will it be online? Will it be a mix of different things? And we, going one step further, we also wanted to get a sense of how students felt. This is probably not what a lot of students were anticipating in terms of when they first started imagining themselves as college students. There are a lot of unknowns here. And so we wanted to get a sense of kind of what is the emotional landscape for these students as well. And the range of emotions that we're seeing here may not be too surprising. So an understandable mix of nervousness that you might experience at the start of a new experience. Students are excited as well, and some reported meh, which I'm interpreting as, I'm not sure how to feel, what to feel, or a little bit of indifference or a little bit of uncertainty. And for us, these insights are really helpful for kind of getting a feel for where our students are and can inform both the content that we might send. So, knowing that a lot of students will probably be experiencing some form of online classes is an indication for us that we should work on, sending out more supportive content around online learning strategies and things like that. And then in terms of the emotional piece, always helpful to kind of keep that in our mind as well as we think about the tone that our bots might take as they're delivering information. So if students are, feeling really positive and really excited, are there ways for us to kind of reaffirm that a little bit more? And if they're feeling a little bit nervous, it could be an opportunity for us to massage the tone of our messages in the future, just acknowledge that those feelings are completely valid. And in this last example is another way that we've kind of prioritized connecting students with a human advisor and the folks at the college advising core. So we know from experience that sometimes students feel really embarrassed about reaching out to a person. They may feel like their questions are stupid, or they don't feel like, wasting somebody's time or something like that. So we designed this campaign to really actively solicit questions from students and to give them the opportunity to send their question along directly to a college advising core advisor who would be able to text back with them and provide them that one-on-one attention that they might need. And the way that we designed this, we targeted a smaller cohort of students. So not sending this en masse to 173,000 students, just to help us kind of control that workflow a little bit and that influx of questions. And in doing so, we're really able to remove that barrier of, that embarrassment that students might feel about asking questions, because we're really actively asking them, hey, what's on your mind? What's one thing that you're wondering about right now? And I also see this as kind of a really helpful exercise in, normalizing asking for help, making sure that students realize that that's okay. That's what advisors are here to help with. The bot is really non-judgmental. So no matter what you're writing, the bot is acknowledging that and sending it along to an advisor for help. So this, I hope, these examples give everyone a sense of kind of the breadth and, how creative you might be able to be with some of these campaigns and how we deliver these messages.
I'm going to do a quick pause here. In a minute, you're going to see a poll come up on your screen. We actually wanted to offer all of you as attendees the opportunity to use this technology at no cost as a way to provide your students with some more support this summer. So the ability to use the AdmitHub platform and work with our team, you can send your students a campaign of your choosing, similar to the ones we've shared here already today. And you may get actionable data about student well-being, or even nudge students to complete a critical enrollment step like the registration example that you see here. After you send the campaign, our team would develop a custom insights report for you that would include engagement rates, campaign reach, student plans, and more. So if you're interested in texting your students a campaign at no cost this summer, just answer the poll on your screen now, and our team will be in touch. And we'll just give a minute for you to to answer that before we move on to questions and answers. Great. And actually, as we're kind of moving on, one of the things that popped up into my mind that I would love to hear more from the panel on is, you know, Anne, you had mentioned a little bit about the tone of messaging and how, and also just the engagement rate of students was super high for this cohort. And I know that all of you in sort of crafting the messaging that's going out to students over text message is a little bit different than might be in an email communication, for example, right? So, you know, you're trying to capture students' attention. They are building a relationship with this chatbot that is very different than, say, sending an email back and forth to a staff member at a school or an institution or a college access org, et cetera. I'm wondering if from your interactions with students, either on the writing side or Greg and Toby from the advising side, you know, what has been the student sentiment of conversing with a chatbot and it sort of first as their first line of questioning and receiving information, and then connecting with an advisor afterwards when items need to get escalated?
We've seen a very positive response from students. I think they've really appreciated the opportunity to talk to a real person when it gets to that point. Many of the students that we're working with, as everyone probably is aware, they're used to texting and they're used to this type of communication, and so it's really natural. And in fact, we do offer the opportunity for phone or video calls, but not many students take us up on that because they enjoy the texting so much and have appreciated the answers that are provided.
Great, thanks. That was just one question that kind of popped up. I know there's more to the presentation. We'll get back there, but I just couldn't help but ask before we launch into the further Q&A. Thank you, Toby.
So I'll sort of pick up where we left off in terms of the last campaign that Ann talked about, offering students a nudge to connect to an advisor if they had a specific question. And I just want to give a little background on then how we staffed that and what kinds of results we've seen through participating in this collaboration. So as I mentioned, we have 829 advisors with 30 university partners. So we engaged 18 of those university partner programs to help us essentially staff the escalations that come from students responding to the chatbot. And over the course of the time since April till now, we've had 92 different advisors working shifts to essentially answer the questions that come in real time. We thus have been able to respond to over 8,000 inquiries escalated by the chatbot. And it was also mentioned earlier that as we see sort of trends emerging from the students, the types of questions they're asking, or simply where we are in the calendar and knowing what deadlines they're facing, we've also been able to host virtual events, webinars on FAFSA verification, or what are the steps that you need to take to complete matriculation, or just recently, how do you engage in your campus life when everything will be starting virtually. And so you can see we've had over 1,800 students attend the webinars that we've hosted. We've also had sort of live open office hours. And again, we rely on the AdmitHub chatbot to promote those opportunities. Let the students know, hey, there's a webinar coming up later this week. Here's how you register. And then the chatbot reminds them of that, I think a day before and then right before. And so that's a lot of sort of administrative tasks that we would normally have to do that gets handled automatically and really drives the kinds of numbers you see here. And it's crucial because it just expands our reach. in our in-school model in normal times, those 829 advisors are working with 240,000 students. But as you can imagine, they're often running down the hallways to chase down students. And all of that gets handled by the chatbot in a way that allows us to reach a much larger audience with fewer staff and escalate the questions that students have at the moment they have them, so that we can really handle students' questions and needs in the moment and do so efficiently and effectively. So if we'll move to the next slide, I can finally address Meredith's question that came in over the chat about what kinds of themes we're seeing that get escalated by the students and the chatbot. And so this table here shows conversations by tag. Our advisors keep track of what questions they're answering and what the topics are or tags are. Over the course of the whole intervention, financial aid has definitely been the most common topic. That has shifted a little bit over time, although it is still a very common question that students have even at this point in August. And so you can see just an example of a question that came in. This one was from early, back in April. How can I afford college? And the response that an advisor provided. And then we just happened to have included another example here, and I wanted to highlight this because of the question earlier about community colleges participating with Common App. And so a key point to make here is that this intervention, of course, is really being responsive to the needs of students. And so our advisors always take a best match and fit approach, and Common App realizes, we all realize that while these students started an application through the Common App, they may ultimately decide that the best option for them come fall is a community college or non-Common App member institution. And our advisors are trained to help them make that best decision for themselves to go where they will be most successful. And you can see an example of that here. While this student came to us through Common App, they have questions specifically about starting at a community college and how to then successfully transfer to a four-year university. So briefly, I'll just add that more recently questions have shifted to focus more on academics and what to expect when school starts in the fall. But again, financial aid continues to be a question that frequently comes through for students. And so with that, I'll go to the next slide and just share an example on that point of a recent financial aid topic that was fielded by a CAC advisor. And we wanted to share, this is a quote from one of the advisors participating in the project, because we wanted to share that both the student and the advisor realize the value of being able to connect in this way. The advisor feels empowered by their participation in this project and being able to connect directly with the student that needs their help. And so we've really found, again, that the ability to connect with students that need the help that we would never have been able to reach otherwise has been really positive for all of us participating on this project.
And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the student experience really briefly, because I want to be conscious of time and leave tons of time for questions that might come up. But we're able to use self-reported data to get, a better picture of the student experience. Anne mentioned a little while ago the fantastic option of using surveys, which I love, because we're able to ask students, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you like using the bot, or how do you like texting with Ollie, right? And what we've been able to see, some student responses were, Ollie doesn't judge. That's the name of our bot, by the way. Ollie helps them keep track of certain deadlines. and making sure that they are submitting, for example, their immunization records, or helping them get the holds on their account lifted. So Ollie's good at tracking, but also what's great about having a bot that I've seen, which you can't always have when you're emailing students directly or texting students directly, is that Ollie can respond at 24/7. So Ollie's pretty quick. So if you have a question, I don't know, you might think about how to register for a class at 12:30 a.m. Ollie can respond at 12:32 a.m. with the answer to that question, right? And so those are some of the benefits that we've seen in terms from a student perspective. And we hope to be able to look deeper into and talk to students more about how their interaction with Ollie has been. But so far, we've been able to dig deep into our own messages, right? And see how students are enjoying texting with Ollie. Now, I'm also going to talk about the future. But before I get to the future, I want to make a few key points about class of 2020 that I didn't get to make in prior slides. And that's just the outpouring of support that we've received and how this project has expanded, excuse me, even for class of 2020. So for example, we started this project really like giving in-kind services, both from our partners at AdmitHub and CAC. They have been fantastic in doing that. And we were able to get a generous sponsorship from Capital One to continue texting these students through their first year of college. And so first and foremost, I just want to say thanks to Capital One and thank you to our partners because we've been able to grow this project in ways that we didn't initially think. We just thought we were going to help students in the here and now. And knowing that we'll be able to help them get through that first semester is really important. And I want to take time to acknowledge that. Secondly, I want to acknowledge the fact that in May, we were able to acquire through generous donations of a few companies, we were able to acquire $1.5 million in emergency grant funds that we will be able to offer to these students specifically. And so we will be releasing those funds to those students. These students will be able to apply for these emergency grants, and we'll be able to support students, not just with text messages and that emotional, so the social emotional support, which is important, but we also will be able to support them in another tangible way, right, with emergency grant funds. And so we're definitely excited and grateful for our partnership with Scholarship America, who will help us disperse those funds to these students. Now, in thinking about the future, we know that the class of 2021 was also impacted, right? They were juniors. We know that junior years often used as sort of like a launching pad, a time to prepare for college, whether you're taking SAT prep, ACT prep, meeting with your counselor to develop your college list. We know that students, as they enter into their senior year, the class of 2021, they might not have that face-to-face interaction with a school counselor like they typically would. And although a lot of institutions are waiving, their testing requirements, this is still truly an adjustment. And so we're hoping to expand this work to the class of 2021. We're hoping to support even more students. So instead of 173,000 to hopefully, crossing my fingers, to hopefully support nearly 500,000 participants. Another layer onto that, which is exciting, and I use that word a lot, I'm gonna have to find another word, but what gets me going is that we'll be able to add families as well as a part of this intervention, right? Knowing that families, oftentimes first generation families, need help too in supporting their students. And so we want to be able to incorporate families for the support for class of 2021. We're also hoping to continue those webinars, those discussions that we've already been doing with class of 2020, but to continue that for families and students from the class of 2021. We're still going to be using Ollie to text these students, hopefully, and we're still going to be partnering with College Advising Corps, but we hope to just do it at a larger scale and with more folks for class of 2021. And so, yeah, we are still, I know there's like tons of questions I've gotten already from other folks about what that's going to look like, how that's going to work out. We are still in the fundraising phase, and I am not bashful in saying that, because we know that, in order to provide this level of quality support, it costs. And so we are in the fundraising stage of that process. And so hopefully with the additional support from some more folks, we'll be able to provide that support.
Thanks, Rahje. And before we go over to some questions, I wanted to give one more chance to see if anyone is interested in learning more about our AI, our research-backed strategies. We wanted to give you all the opportunity to chat. So there should be another poll coming up, and if you'd like us to reach out to learn more, feel free to click yes. And hosted panelists, we can't vote on the poll. Well, that's disappointing. We're not allowed to vote. So feel free. I actually had one question that I was hoping maybe Anne or Rahje could address. I know that when institutions start working with us, they're in starting to text message with students, there's always a concern over the opt-in process and the initial messaging. Do students have the opportunity to opt out? Do they know it's a bot that they're speaking with? Can you speak to that and how that process worked for this project?
Yeah, and do you want me to take at least the initial part about how?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so for Optin Language, it's really important for privacy reasons for students, right? There is a question when students create a Common App account, and there's a question that says, or I acknowledge, or I accept, or I would like more information about my Common App or my application, as well as more information that will help me through the college application process or college resources. I'm not saying that, right? It also please don't take that for word and try to make your own opt-in language. Our general counsel would not be happy, but more or less students have the option to click that button saying that they want that additional support. And they are then sort of, they have the option to receive messages from us. And then we choose the students who are eligible or who meet those certain parameters that we want to be a part of this texting initiative. In terms of like how we actually started engaging, we did like not a soft launch, but like an email. We sent each of the students emails letting them know that they would be receiving messages. And initially we did get some students saying, nope, I don't want them. So they'd never received a text from us. We just knew straight ahead that they did not want text messages at all. And then we sent an introduction text, and Anne, you can probably speak better to
Yeah, sure.
what it looked like.
Yeah, so the introduction text, definitely really important, just kind of introducing the concept of the bot, letting students know that it is a bot, as well as giving them, all of the standard messaging around, if you ever want to stop out, don't want to receive these messages, here are your options. And so we're super upfront with students, and typically, we're giving students that option upfront, making sure that they're aware, and at any time in their conversation, if they decide that they no longer want to receive these messages for whatever reason, they have the ability to do so. And the AdmitHub platform does kind of recognize when students are saying like, stop, don't message me. We're able to kind of honor their preferences and kind of keep them on this opt-out list. So there is no way that they will be contacted in the future with any of our proactive messaging.
Great, thanks. Another question that I was hoping you all would talk about is around the crafting of the overall campaign calendar when you're messaging with students. I know that there's definitely an importance in getting students the proper amount of information, and also gathering some information from them, their perspectives, and what's going on through their heads, right? But it's in finding the balance of the two, so that so we don't annoy the students so that they turn off or unsubscribe or whatnot, so that they want to keep interacting with Ollie and with you all. So how did you go about kind of striking the balance of providing information with nudges and coupling that with gathering feedback from students so they don't feel like they're constantly being surveyed?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think, starting from the very beginning, a lot of it is just like making sure that students have the information that they need to keep following through with those enrollment tasks. And so making sure that we're prioritizing that knowledge and those reminders that we know are super, super effective. And just between all of us, Common App, College Advising Corps, we know this process really well. And then of course, there were all the wrinkles that came up in terms of helping students to navigate, changing processes, things that might be a little bit different this year given COVID. And so really working together to identify what all of the different paths might be for those students. And then of course, there's always room with any communication plan that things will come up, right? As we have seen kind of in the past couple of weeks, things will definitely come up, and I'll pass it to Rahje to kind of talk a little bit more about that. So there's always a little bit of flexibility too. So knowing that more than anything at the end of the day, in terms of how to not overwhelm or pester students, is to make sure that they're getting really relevant information at a time when they need it. So that more than anything is key. Rahje, do you want to say more about us adapting our calendar?
There's a saying that says like man makes plans and then like God laughs or something like that, because you can plan, right? And you can have a content calendar. And as we saw, George Floyd was murdered, right? And we knew that we couldn't just send a text to students that Friday and say, hey, just checking in, wanted to make sure that you committed to college, right? That's a little tone deaf, right? At that time. And so it's often, a mix of making plans, but also keeping your ear to the grounds and paying attention to what's happening around you. We know that college does not happen in a vacuum, and our students were affected. We got huge engagement that weekend. And so, and it's a delicate dance knowing that Ollie is a bot and a lot of humans don't have answers. So I call it a delicate dance because we spent a lot of time, and I just want to give a huge shout out to the AdmitHub team for really spending a lot of time in creating the content that we sent to students that weekend, just getting a temperature check to see how they were doing, what resources we could help provide them with. And so we make our plans, and then sometimes those plans change, right, based on whatever's happening in society around us. And so I'm grateful to be working with a team that is flexible, knowing that we can, I can ping Ann and say, hey, Ann, did you see this? Like, can we sort of put this or figure this out and like fit it into the texting calendar, and letting Toby and Greg know, hey, can we prep our advisors and let them know that, we're going to ask students about this, so that the advisors on the other end are able and prepared or ready to get maybe a flood of questions about a particular topic.
Yeah, in that particular week, we received, I believe it was over 900, maybe close to 1,000 escalations. So that was the number of messages that came to an advisor. And there were everything related to what was happening in our country, but also just mental health of students and the challenges that they were dealing with related to COVID. We had situations of homelessness and other types of things that came up where we were able to connect them to resources in their communities to support them.
That's great. Thanks all. Maybe one last question before we sign off. And I know that Jenny Ricard from Common App is always talking about bringing more joy to this process for students. And with so many challenges that students and families are facing in this particular time, I wonder how we all collectively, us as panelists, but also the greater population, all of you as attendees, how can we bring more joy to a process that is often stressful and anxiety ridden? As much fun as it is to fill out the FAFSA, how do we mix in messaging or provide resources that will sort of lighten the load for these students on their path to higher ed? I know it's a big topic, but just curious to see if anyone has thoughts, either on the panel or as attendees. Feel free to chat.
One of the things that I'm really excited about is, through the surveying piece of our tool, there are a lot of really creative things that we can do. And I really excited about kind of helping students to do a little bit of reflecting as they kind of close out this journey, as they start to enter and become full-fledged college students. It's really something to celebrate. It's not a small achievement, especially for this class of 2020. So much has been thrown their way. And so being able to kind of, I'm excited, you know, Ollie could potentially send a little message as classes are starting up just to congratulate them and to wish them well and to make sure that they have a moment to kind of think about you know, how much they've gone through and, you know, take those skills in terms of their perseverance, things like that, as they enter into their next phase.
Yeah, along those lines, I would add, you know, in addition to this project and the advising that's occurring with our other virtual projects and our in-school programs, we've really been emphasizing a growth mindset and not thinking about what's not happening or what could have happened or what you're missing or how it's going to be different, but the possibilities that exist within it. And I've been so impressed by what colleges and universities are doing to create community virtually and how they're creating networks of supports for students in very different circumstances than they might normally do. And so I think it's a lesson for all of us to think about how we look at the positive that we can gain from this and what is possible and how we can remake something into something new and better than what it was before. So that's what we've been trying to emphasize with students as we go through this.
I worked at a few colleges before I got to Common App, and just a theme that has always sort of stuck with me is meeting students where they are and just being there for them, right? And so no one college student is the same. And so the best that we can, to the best of our ability, meet them where they are, you know, not try to push them in a direction that we think is best, right? But really walking alongside them through this process. I think that just lightens the load so much more and allows them to create joy in other ways, right? In other spaces in their lives. And so the best that we can do that, right? Walking alongside them, meeting them where they are, that's something that I would just strongly encourage for our group and other groups who are looking to support students.
That's great. Well, thank you all for the thoughts. And we're about out of time, so I just wanted to thank our wonderful panel for an amazing presentation and for your collaboration. Also, thanks to everyone who's attended for taking time out of your busy day. I know that some of you are already back on campus. If you're at an institution, your fall semester has already started. For all of you and your students, wishing you the best of health and wellness for the fall semester. Thank you so much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your week and summer.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.